I'm photographer David duChemin, and this is Vision is Better, a sometimes weekly podcast about the craft and art of photography. Welcome here. Hey, this is episode 48 of Vision is Better. Today I want to talk to you about receiving critique. The last episode we talked about giving critique. And I wanted to back up and just say this one more thing, is that I think, given my initial premise that photographers don't listen very well much of the time, that critique should probably not be given unsolicited. I see a lot of this online. Sometimes I am the object of that critique. Sometimes it's other people, and it's very easy to give free advice. But again, unless you are part of a dialogue about what this specific photographer's vision is, I'm not sure that the critique is very helpful. And more to the point, I think it can actually be quite damaging when we are the ones giving it, because the moment we leap to this unsolicited critique, we're no longer listening. And we're not asking ourselves, what is the photographer trying to say? We're imposing ourselves upon their art, and I don't think that's the path to growth. So about receiving critique, because I do think that actively seeking good critique can be one of the best things that we do for our photography. And so I have three thoughts about that. The first is receive that critique and seek it very carefully. I don't think putting an image out online and saying, hey, any thoughts about this, is usually very helpful, because yes, there will be many thoughts about your photograph, and then you will be tasked with sifting through that and trying to find out which of those thoughts is helpful, which is valid. And unless you know that photographer and you know their art, and unless you have some respect for that photographer and their art, I'm not sure it's the most helpful. So I would seek a photographer that you like, that you respect, who does work that you respect, but in a way that you respect it, and then ask them for their feedback, and then enter into that dialogue. When I give critique, one of the first things I usually ask is, apart from, what are you trying to accomplish with this? Even before that, I ask, what kind of feedback would be helpful? And let me say this, if what you're looking for is a pat on the back and an attaboy, then probably know that ahead of time and tell the person in fact, just show the photograph to your mother, because she will tell you that it's great and it will build your ego, but it will probably do nothing for your craft. If you want someone to help you with your craft, find someone that you respect, and be pretty clear about what you are looking for in that critique. Are you really looking for an honest assessment of whether that particular photograph or body of work represents the vision you were trying to accomplish, trying to express? The second point is we should probably receive critique with a good deal of humility. I think the ego can get in the way of our creative process far too often, myself included. And the more you hear that your work is great, the more your head kind of expands, and the harder it will be when the piece that at the back of your mind doesn't quite hit it. When someone tells you that, that realization can be hard to swallow. So go in with some humility, and remember that, I hope, the point of this is not the attaboy. The point of this is to improve your craft. So you find someone that can really, truly give you helpful advice, give you helpful feedback and critique, and that in a way that you are willing to swallow it, even if it's pretty harsh, even if it's a jagged little pill. You probably, if you go into it going, this is going to help my craft, and you already know that there are going to be weaknesses in your craft. You already know you are not a master. I am not a master, and so I ask appropriate people for their critiques of my work. Honestly, what do you think? But again, it's well-chosen critique, and with a good deal of humility. And the third thing I want to say about that is probably... sorry, I'm looking out my window. There's a hummingbird, and it's a squirrel. I get easily distracted. The third thing I want to say is that I think we need to take critique with a grain of salt. You have to remember that art is a deeply personal thing. If you're asking very specifically about technical flaws in your image, that is easily addressed by almost any opinion on the internet. But if you want more, if you want something that says, if you want someone who will say, this photograph moves me or it fails to move me, and here's why, and here's the way in which it moves me, and why, then I think that's very helpful feedback. But at a certain point, you have to trust your voice. At a certain point, you have to say, I appreciate that feedback. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to ask myself whether it's true, whether it's helpful. And then after that, you need to set it aside. I do this with my photography. I do this with my books. I will go and read the worst reviews on Amazon on a day that I'm not feeling too fragile. And I will ask myself, is it true? Is it helpful? The book's already written. I can't do anything about it, but could I take that feedback and apply it to future books? And so when I read a review that says, you know, that I just go on and on and on, I do. And if you don't like a lot of words in your photography education, I'm probably not the best guy to be reading, because I like words as much as I like photography. And sometimes it takes me a little while to kind of, you know, get to the point. Hearing that kind of feedback is, it's helpful, but I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not going to change my style. So if someone's looking at your photograph, and, you know, the photograph in the background here is, you know, it's a little bit blurry in some spots. There's motion blur. The shadows are really dark. And if someone that you're showing this work to prefers bright, colorful images with everything tack sharp, this photograph is not going to do it for them. The big question is, does it do it for you? At the end of the day, does it do it for you? Take that and the stuff that other people are saying, hopefully your well-chosen, humbly received critique, and balance them against each other and ask, can the one help the other without sacrificing the integrity of the other? Can I do the one, apply what's helpful from the other, and then set everything else aside and go do your work, having learned some valuable lessons? Anyway, that's receiving critique. I hope it's helpful, and I do hope you will seek critique. Anyone can seek fans. The fans are there in number, even if it's just your family. But the critiques, those are harder to come by. But do be careful about the voices you listen to, because many of them will be coming from negative places, because the people that offer you critique will also have their ego in play, and I think we need to be pretty careful about those voices. Thanks so much for joining us. Remember, gear is good, but vision's better. Take care.